obviously you can actually add the PNGs, you can add the pictures and things, and then make actual cards. But this is where we are going to leave it. And once we actually start the PyGame course itself, then we are going to learn about all those things. After learning object-oriented programming and all that kind of stuff. So let's create our racing game using PyGame, right? So now let me get rid of these. Let's just focus on our racing game. Okay, now we are going to be using something we call PyGame. So it's an inbuilt, it's like a game engine. It's not exactly a game engine, but it allows you to make games using what PyGame. Okay, now we are going to go in depth into this. We're going to make a whole tutorial. Okay, so this is just like an introduction at the end of our main Python course, and then we can later move into PyGame having had this experience. Okay, good. So first thing you want to do is to import PyGame. Okay, because that's what we are going to be using. You have to import it in order to be able to use it. Next thing you want to really do is you want to create the window. So you want to create your window that everything is going to be taking place in, because the PyGame we are about to make is going to be displaying inside of a window. So you want to get your window size down and all those kind of stuff. Okay, so here's what we want to do. We want to initialize PyGame. So we say PyGame.init. That's going to help us to initialize the whole thing, initialize PyGame. Now we need to think about two parameters for our window, for our screen. Okay, and that's our width and our height. I'm going to explain this in detail when we start the course. So I'm going to be explaining in detail in the actual PyGame course, but bear with me. This could get very long if we try to do that. Okay, so we say 500 and then we say 700. Okay, so as you saw, I've already made a game. This was due to some tests that I have conducted. Okay, when you're building, you might have to play around with some of the figures and see what works best for you. So we want a width of about 500 and then want a height of 700. Now, since the height is longer, you can think of how it will be. So let's see an S24 screen, like the vertical part is going to be longer. Okay, that's what we are dealing with. Then what we want to do is we want to focus on our screen. Okay, we want to focus on our screen. So we can say our screen is equal to, now we use our PyGame. Now PyGame has something it calls display. Okay, we want to set the display mode. So we say display dot set mode, like this. Good. Now what do we want to display on our screen? We want to combine our width we just made over here, and then our height to get our display. Okay, good. So if we look at the set mode, I think what's in the brackets also has to have brackets. See if that makes any sense. So let me just keep this in brackets. Okay, then with that you have been able to deal with the screen. Now also something we can do is we go PyGame again, and we want to go to our display again, once again, but this time we are not setting mode, we are setting, let me see, our caption. Okay, so we set our caption. Let me see, which caption do I want? Let's just call it racing game, like this. Okay, so we've been able to set our display mode, our screen parameters, and then the window itself, and then this is what we are going to have. Okay, so that's a good starting point. What I want to do is I want to create a game loop. Okay, now if you have been following the course, you should be familiar with the game loops. So this game loop is for us to be able to create, like, should I say, a quick event, okay, and also to just keep things running over and over again. Because think about it, a racing game, cars need to keep coming, but almost any other game. Okay, so let's just make the gaming loop. While true, you know what, for more control, let me keep a variable here. Let's call it running, and let me just set it to true, like this. Okay, and then we say while running, like this here. I think this is better. Okay, let's do it this way. Now for events in PyGame, again, now PyGame has events, I think. Good. And I want to get the specific event you are talking about. Good. So PyGame works on something called events. Okay, so for all the events, if it's a quit event, so let's say if event dot, so if event dot type like this is equal to PyGame dot quit. So if it's a quit event, like I was saying, then we want to set running to false so that we can just break everything we are doing. Again, that's some of the essence of the game loop. All right, yeah. So if we are able to set it to false, then it is part of the essence of having what, a game loop. Okay, good. Then finally, what you want to do is you want to do screen dot fill. Okay, now I want to add some, I don't know the specific color, but let's just do 50 50 50. It's, I don't know, some slate gray-ish color. Let me just, yeah. So at the end of this, ideally you should be able to display a window, like I said, a phone-like window. Let me run this. Hopefully we do not have any errors, and then we'll be able to have our window displayed. I think this is just like this. If my memory serves me right, this should also be double. Okay, let me just do that, and hopefully we don't get any errors. Okay, yeah. So this is just a color value. Okay, this is just a color value. Yeah, good. So as you can see, this is our game window. Okay, so we are going to be making the rest of the racing game. Everything about the racing game is going to be in the confines of this window. And if you quite remember, I told you we made the height longer simply because we want this part to be longer, so that we have more room for the racing game itself at the top there. Okay, so width of 500 and height of 700. Yeah, it just uses to kind of visualize, and then you'll be able to be fine with PyGame like that. So if you're finding this video in any way helpful, I suggest that you give us a like and then you hit the subscribe button. It's going to help me and the team to keep on making massive courses like this for absolutely free. Also leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section on how we can improve these courses. And yeah, let's get back to the video. So that's very good. We have been able to see our game window. Okay, now let's work within our window. And I would like to mention this, things could be more simpler and more innovative if we're able to use OOP. Okay, you could give it a lot of properties and things like that, but let's just keep working like this. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to create our road lines. Okay, so let's see, create road lines, so more of position. Okay, again we deal with positions. Again, I'll explain those in detail in the actual course. So let's create a variable road lines. Let's leave it like that. Okay, now I want to set it to an empty array. Okay, we want to keep road lines in an empty array like this. Okay, good. Now we want to see for y in range. We want to give a range. Okay, now this particular range we want to start from 0. Okay, then we want to go to our height. Okay, now I want to include a step of 80. Okay, then we say road lines dot append y, like this. Once we show it on the screen, I'm going to go into more details. Not more details, I'll give you an overview. You'll be able to understand it. Again, more details will be in the PyGame course itself. Now let's look at what we wanted to avoid. So if I wanted to create the race lines, instead of doing something like this, instead of like hard coding maybe some string or something like that, we want to calculate like based on the position to now get this actual line. I don't know if we can see. Okay, instead of imagine it in the window, so this could have been the divisions in the road, but we don't want to do that. We want to calculate it based off like actual positions. Okay, good. So that's why we are doing that. I'm anticipating that this mistake might be made. Okay, so we want to keep almost everything. We want to keep everything inside the game loop that we have created. Okay, let me send this back inside a bit. Okay, we want to keep it inside the bounds of everything that we are doing. Okay, so let me just paste that over here. Good. So this should be within the bounds. Okay, good. So we have done this. We have determined the positions of the lines, but nothing is going to show yet. That's how PyGame is for you. Okay. So nothing is going to show yet. We actually have to draw it. We have to display it on the screen. So if you have been working with PyGame, you'll notice that I did not update the display. Okay. That's because we have to add this. I want to add this. Okay. I want to draw the lines, the road lines. Okay. So for y in road lines like this, then we say PyGame. Now PyGame has available to us a draw method. Okay, so draw, and then we see dot. What do you want to draw? We want to draw a rectangle. So PyGame dot draw dot rect. Okay, good. Now what does this particular one take in? Let me break it down like this so that we're able to see it. So I always tell us to be looking at this particular documentation inside of VS Code. Okay, so it takes in a surface, then we want a color. That's, we put a color value, and then the rect value, the rectangle value. Okay, so that's what I'm about to be doing. I know the numbers part can get confusing, but this is simply the surface. Okay, so the surface, where do we want to put it? We want to put it on our screen. This, where is the screen? This screen that we made. Okay, we want to put it on this screen that we made. So we need the surface, the color value, and then the rectangle value. Okay, so we are going to say screen, like I said, then we need 255, 255, 255. If you started coding today, I think everybody knows this. This is white. Okay, this is the RGB for white. Yeah, so that's white. So we want the lines to be white. That's the color value. And then finally, we need our rectangle position. So we say 240, and we say Y, and we say 20, and then we say 50. Again, I'm going to try my best to explain this, but we'll go into more details in the actual course. I'll do my best. Okay, good. So now we have actually draw the lines. And finally, let me add one update before the screen fill. We say PyGame. Is that right? PyGame dot display, and we say dot update like this. Good. And now when we run this, we should be having our lines in the middle there. Yes. Yeah, so as you can see, we have been able to display the lines in the middle over here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to get these lines to be moving. Okay, so let me just try to explain this before we log off, and then we come back to do that. We are not moving the car, we are moving the board, we are moving the screen itself. Okay, so we just want these lines, we animate these lines instead of animating the cars. Okay, so the car itself is going to be like static, and this animation is going to create the illusion of the car moving. That's how this 2D ring, I think even endless run is, that's how the principle is. That's the principle that you want to work on. Okay, so let's move on. Now what I want to do is we want to actually get those lines to move or look like they are moving, depending on who you ask, if you want to go into details. Okay, so what I want to do is at this point I want to add in a clock. Okay, now let's think of it like we'll be using this to control FPS. Let me put it like that. So we say clock is equal to PyGame. Now PyGame has available to us time. So we see dot time like that. Say dot clock. We want the clock. Okay, so like this. So let's think of it like we have initialized like the variable, and then we are going to be using it later. Good. Then we want to come inside of the game loop. Okay, we want to come inside here. Then we want to set the actual tick of the clock. So we say clock dot tick. And what do you think? I said FPS, so what do we really think? Let's just go 60. Okay, let's go 60. I think that's a standard. That's a good standard to start off, regardless of your machine or whatever. Like clock dot 60, that should be able to work for you. Now the next thing I want to add is the actual code that will let the road lines itself move. Okay, now if you want to think about it, I want to make sure you understand, where do you think this one is going to go? So if you study what's going, anything that involves changes like over and over again, I mean, think of frames per second. We want to display the first frame, second frame, like it's something that's continuous. Okay, if you look at this, we want to draw the road lines. It's something that should be rendering and then keep rendering. If you want this to move again, we want it to keep doing it over and over again. So that's some way you should think of deciding what goes into your loop and then what stays outside of your loop. Okay, let me see, moving your lines, if that makes any sense. Actually, it makes sense. Yeah, so moving your lines. Now, again, we want to say for I in range. Let me see. Now, I want to take the length of our road lines. Okay, yes, the length of our road lines. Let me see it like this. Good. Then we want to say road lines at 1. Again, I'm going to be trying to explain this. So if you pick an array, we know that the position, we know that index 1 is position 2. Okay, so in order to be making our illusions, we want to be working off the second position, and then we just be making our movements like that, if that makes any sense, because we want something that's continuous, so the movement is going to be occurring in thereabouts, and that alone is not it. We are not done. We want to say if our road lines at I, okay, good, mind we are looking through everything with I. If our road lines at I is greater than our height, like this, okay, then road lines at I, we want to decrement it. Okay, so minus equals, and then we say 50. Okay, good. So we want to decrement it by 50. Now, again, for me to explain, let me try to run this. Okay, we want to change this side to here, so you can see the movements occurring. I think it's quite fast, but yeah, so that's the movements that are working off, and you can see once we have something over here, right? If we have something over here, it's going to create the illusion of like movement. Okay, so that's what we are working off right now. So we have been able to make the movements. Let me see if I can get it to slow down so that we appreciate it. And if you really think about it, you can see that we started from index 1, right? This one is always set in place, and then we do our illusions over here, as you can see. So we render here, then it leaves, then we render here, then leaves, then render here. You see how it is. Okay, so that's how to move the road. Let's just keep this at 50. Okay, now we are going to make ways to control like the speed. Now the speed itself is going to be coming more from the car side of things. Okay, because what we just did again is just like an illusion. Okay, to create the illusion of movement. So the speed itself is going to come from the car side. So the next thing we are going to do, we will add the player. We'll add the player being the car. Okay, so next we are going to add the car. So if you're finding this video in any way helpful, I suggest that you give us a like and then you hit the subscribe button. It's going to help me and the team to keep on making massive courses like this for absolutely free. Also leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section on how we can improve these courses. And yeah, let's get back to the video. So let's go ahead to do that. Okay, let's go ahead to add the car. Now to do that, you want to end. Let me just take this time to say this. Okay, so in PyGame, it's a 2D engine. Okay, so we are working off width and height. Okay, let's just keep it in our minds like that. We are working off of 2 dimensions. Let me just keep it like that. So yeah, so in most of the objects that we are going to be creating, we are going to be needing those 2 dimensions. Okay, so in attempts to create our car, we are going to need a car X and a car Y. Okay, good, like this. So we want X to be 220, okay, and we want Y to also be 550. Now again, these are things I tested off screen, but let's keep it as the same principle. I said it's going to give us a phone thing, and if you think about it, Y means like Y is a vertical part. Okay, so the car is going to be like a bit long. Okay, like that's how it's just going to be. Then we are not done. We want to do for the width and then the height. Okay, so we say car width is equal to, let me see, I've forgotten. Now car height, if I don't remember the test, I'll just use anything. Let me see, I think it was 60. Yeah, this should be 60, and again the height has to go longer than it. So let me give it 100. Let me give it 100. I think that's right. The difference is 40. Yeah, I think that's right. Good. So let me add in a comment here that says add player car, like this. Okay, so this is what we need in order to be adding the player car. Again, this is just the position aspect of things. Okay, so we have to now draw this car too. Just like the way we added for the lines. You can see it's over here. Then, so let me put it here. Let's say position. Okay, then we actually have to go and draw it inside of the loop. Okay, so we draw our lines, we move our lines. Let me now draw the car. So, see, drawing our car like this. Good. So what do you want to do again? Oh, I wish I grouped the drawings together. So we just say pygame.draw.rect. Again, that's the shape we want to exploit. We want to use a rectangle. Say pygame.draw like this. See .rect. We open it up and we open it up again, just so we'll be able to see that much better. Okay, now pygame.draw.rect. Let's go through again. We need a surface that is going to be our screen. We need a color value. I think I'm going to use red. I think I'm going to use either red or blue. And then we also need the rectangle value. Okay, just like we did for this one. Yeah, so let's go through that. We put screen over here. Then the next thing we need is our color value. Okay, then we want to say 255 0 and then 0. Okay, even if I've been coding for this is just red. Like you see, it's RGB. So if you tune out the rest of the numbers, it just means I left you red. So ideally, this should give you red. This is the color code for red. Okay, yeah. So finally, we want to put our rectangle value. Okay, now our rectangle value is going to be a combination of these positions we have here. We are going to use these positions to form a rectangle. So you can think of it like a rectangle has 4 sides, right? So you are going to make use of all of these to achieve those 4 sides. Again, I'm not going to be explaining in detail. If you're more interested in PyGame, you can catch me in the course. Okay. So we start from car X, then we go to car Y. Again, if you are confused, you can just do what I did. You see the particulars of the rectangle value. In fact, I may go through it as. And then we want our car height. Like this. Okay. So this is what we want to utilize in order to be drawing our car. So let's run. And then we are going to see, we'll be seeing everything coming to life just like that. We're going to see the car itself. So I think we can see that. Okay, so we have been able to render this small box. Okay, and at this point you realize that I've been talking about car, I've been talking about road, I've been talking about all we see is 2-dimensional shapes. Okay, that's because in the other workings on the other layer we are working off the shapes. Now what you can do is if you move forward in this thing, you can do what we call like sprites, even more complex animations than this thing I've done. Okay, and you'll be able to, should I swap the assets like that? So if you perform an asset swap, this can be like a car. So you find a top view of a car in PNG format, and then you'll be able to swap it. But once again, if you want to deal with all those stuff, you have to catch me in the PyGame course. Okay, yeah. So this is it. You have been able to add the car. The next thing we want to do is we want to be able to move this from left to right. Then we also think of other cars, so obstacles that was going to interact to us to just make it a bit more fun, and then we can double up from there. Yeah. So now let's deal with the game controls. Okay. Now I want to add this right under the events. Okay. So PyGame has made provisions for us to work with these controls. Okay, now we need to do like some kind of initialization. So we'll go through the keys. We say keys equals pygame dot, let's say key dot get. I'm forgetting this thing. I think it's get pressed. Good. Get pressed, and then you add a bracket like this. So this is like some initialization that we are doing. Then what we want to do is we want to say if, okay, then we say our keys, we make a square bracket. We want to say pygame dot key left. Okay, so the two keys I want to be using is the left arrow key and the right arrow key, and I think that's key left and key right. Oh, I remember. You're supposed to use a capital key, okay, key left, key right, but they still mean the same thing. Okay, yeah, all right. So it still means the same thing. So if we are hitting the left key, what do we do? Let me say it like that. We want to take our car X, okay, and then we want to, let me see, left. We want to decrement it by 5, okay, like this. Then let's go again. In fact, let me just copy it. Like, let me be a proper programmer. I'm going to copy this and edit it, right? So let's copy and let's paste this, okay. Then we want to change this to right, because this time we are dealing with the right key. So we say right, good, and this time we want to increment it, okay. Now I'm going to be explaining like shortly, so don't worry. I want to do one last thing, but I think it will be good demonstration. So let me just run the window, and then we are going to show it, okay. So let me just run this. Let me run this. Okay, so as you can see, we are moving a bit, okay. I want us to pay attention to what happens when we get closer to the walls. You see, we are entering, we are basically entering, okay, and it's basically boundless. You can move and move and move. So we do not want that to happen. It looks weird, it looks like a bug, okay, it looks like something we didn't see. So we need to fix that, okay. And what we want to do is, so let's say this is a 0, okay. I always explain this using a graph. This will be 0, let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 up to the top there, another 1 2 3 4 5 up to here, okay. Now again, let me explain this part of what we did. So over here, right, when we said car X, if it's left, we want to decrement by 5, okay. Again, if we use my number line theory, wherever we are, when we decrement by -5, it's going to take the number lower. Imagine it's 1 2 3 4 5 6 from left to right. If we decrement by 5, 10 now turns to 5, and 5 will be this way on the line. So that ends you moving this word. On the other hand, if you increment it, go to something like 15. Now 15 will be found on this far side. I wish I had a whiteboard. I'll explain better. Then we move like this. So that's just how the movement is. So we are simply saying, okay, when we hit this wall, we want to reset it to the bounds, the value that the bounds has. And over here, we want to reset to the value that the bounds has. That's one way of keeping everything in bounds. Okay, so let's just look at how that's going to be done. So still right around the controls, we want to say if car, okay, car X is less than 0, then car X is equal to 0. From my explanation, we kind of know that the starting point of the viewport, okay, the starting point from the down there, we kind of know that it's 0, all right. So once we hit there, we want to just reset it to 0. It makes sense. But for the other side of things, you realize that the dimensions, that part is the width. This part is the width. So we would have to use our width variable over here to be able to get those bounds. Again, I may not be going into too much detail, but catch me in the PyGame course and you'll be fine. So again, we say if car X, okay, then we say is greater than the width. Now we are using capital width because it means that it has exceeded this our width. Okay, imagine you are going out of the screen I have set for you. Or what are you doing? Okay, so it has exceeded that, right? Now we are not done. Now when it has exceeded that, the car itself is a body. It itself carries values, numerical values that we give to it over here. Okay. Now we want to say, okay, now when you have crossed it, you have added your body weight of 60 to it. You want to take it back. You want to subtract it, and the that's how we'll get you within bounds. Okay, good. So these are the conditions that we want to hit. Then we say car X is equal to, we want to set it to the weight again minus the car what? Minus the car weight. Because we want to subtract it. Okay, we don't need a colon here. Like this. Okay. So this should be able to handle like for both conditions, like for the left. So this is going to, let me see. Let me say this is left bounce. Left wall. Let's call it left wall. I think there's one DSA problem like that. Yes. I think it's a spiral matrix. So let's see left wall. And then let's make this right wall. Okay. And then we want to run the game again to see where we have gotten to. Okay, if truly we are within what? We are within bounds. Okay, yes. So you can see that the road itself is displaying. Now let's try to do the movements again. Now I'm going to near the walls, and you can see that we are tight there. It's almost even perfect. I mean, if we wrote perfect mass, okay, and then we go to the right side, it's still almost perfect. You see, so we wrote perfect mathematics, and by that way we are able to keep the whole thing what? Within bounds. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to create obstacles, like I said. So the next thing to do is to create obstacles that will be moving through. You know how your standard endless racing game is, and you try to dodge them. Okay, so next we have to deal with the enemy car logic, and we'll look at that soon. So if you're finding this video in any way helpful, I suggest that you give us a like and then you hit the subscribe button. It's going to help me and the team to keep on making massive courses like this for absolutely free. Also leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section on how we can improve these courses. And yeah, let's get back to the video. Okay, so let's go on to add our enemies. All right, now if we think back to a few lessons ago when we're doing the rock paper scissors, okay, think about how we want the enemy cars to spawn. You realize that we would need stuff to be happening at random points on the screen, so we want them to be spawning at random positions. Okay, let me put it that way. We want them to be spawning at random positions. Okay, now in light of that, what am I getting at? I'm getting at the fact that we should just import random. You can use this before importing it, but now once we have done that, we need to create variables for the enemy cars. Okay, just like we have for this car over here. Again, I said it's 2D, so 2 dimensions. We are going to have an X, and then we are going to have a Y. Okay, so let me see, where do I even put this? Let me put it before the clock. Let me see, enemy car. Let me see, enemy car positions. All right, good. Now I have something like this. What we want to do is we want to see enemy. So here's why it's good to group your code together. So we want something like enemy car. In fact, let me just call it enemy. So enemy X, like car X, okay. And then we want enemy Y. That'll be like car Y. Okay, that's very simple. And now what to actually do with it? Once again, we have imported our random. Okay, we need a random position. Okay, between, again, these numbers we are working with, they are integers. So like, yeah, you say random. So we want a random integer between 0 and the width, okay, minus 60. Now I hope you followed the whole explanation I gave when we're preventing the out of bounds moves. Okay, when we're doing the left wall and the right wall, I hope you followed all those explanations. Like, think about it. So the width makes the horizontal part of our screen, the smaller part. We want to find somewhere within that horizontal section. So anywhere between 0, this just means anywhere between 0 and then the other one, left one and right, or anywhere between the bounds be spawning as a random integer. Now integer because these will be formed by, should I say, coordinates. Okay, so just form a random integer that will determine the position and yeah. And they want to see enemy at y is equal to, let's say, negative 100. Okay, good. And with this, well, not exactly in bounds per se, this technically even, should I say, out of bounds, but like coming from the top there. Okay, so in the loop, what we want to do is we can be increasing this to create the illusion. I think that will be determining our speed. All right, so let's come in here and let's work of something. Okay, so we see enemy y, and let's just try to be incrementing it. Let's see by 7. Okay, so this is just going to be determining the speed by which is coming out. So again, we are going to write a similar check to keep this in bounds. Okay, so if enemy y, like this, enemy y is greater than the height, okay, then we just set enemy y back to the starting point. That's, let me see, negative 100. I believe that's all it did. Yeah, so we just set enemy y back to negative 100. Then again, we need to deal with enemy x. Enemy x, like this, is equal to, say, random dot rand int. We say 0, the width minus 60. Again, just standard stuff to keep all the spawnings we are doing inside our screen. Okay, let me put it like that. Okay, we want to keep everything inside our screen. So finally, when we have done all this, again, we are not done. This is all just logic. Okay, this is all just logic. So we want to come to where we draw stuff, and then we want to draw, let me draw it here. We want to draw our enemy. Okay, that's the enemy cars. Again, we just need to follow those specific patterns. Okay, so say PyGame, where's PyGame? Dot draw. What do we want to draw? We want to draw a rectangle. Again, now once again we come back to the fact that our rectangles, it takes in a screen color value and then the rectangle value itself. So let's see, screen, that's taking a screen, takes in a surface, sorry, which surface we want to put it. Okay, then for our color value, let's see, I want to give it a blue color. Okay, so we know that the wheel is RGB, so this is for our red, this is for our green, this is for our blue. So if we tune out the rest of the colors, we will automatically have red. Okay, that's if we fill only RGB, we will automatically have blue. So we'll say something like 0, 0, and then we fill the blue, let's say 255. Alright, this should give us blue. Okay, good. And then finally, over here, we want to see enemy. Like, what are we drawing the rectangle with? We are drawing it with our enemy x and our enemy y, and then 60, 100. Okay, good. So again, this will be, should I say, the dimensions of it. Yeah, so these dimensions are like identical to the ones we have for the car width and then the car height. So if we want to be more, we can just put in these variables instead of the hard code, but I think that will be fine. I think that's fine. Yes, so you realize that both the enemy car and the player car will be similar in dimensions. Let me put it that way. Okay, so now let's run this and let's see our enemy car in action. So we have blue and then we have red. Yeah, so you can see the spawning is happening over here. And it's going to be happening across random points in the thing. But as you can see, just pass over it. There will be no collision. We do not want this. We want to do it in a way that when there is contact, okay, between the enemy car and then our player car, like there's some consequences, like game over or something. You know how the racing games are. Yeah, so that's basically what we want. So we want to implement collision detection next. Okay, then work off that. We used to have our score logic. We'll have all of that, and I think we can call it a day. At this point, we are close to being done with this. Okay, yeah. So that's what is next for us. Now we want to add the collision detection. We now have the enemy cars and then the player car, but it collides. Okay, they pass through each other and things like that. You want to handle it. And what I'm thinking is that we want to make the rectangles. Okay, you want to make variables for the rectangles to represent both factions of the cast, the enemy and the players. And then PyGame has made a provision for us. That's why I keep saying engine. You still have to do a lot of the heavy work, but they still make provisions for us. And that's what we are going to be using to check for the collision. If you think about it again, we want to be handling this in the game loop. I just can't seem to settle on where. Let me put this right after the keys. Okay, but these are loops. Okay, here. I was still putting variables here. So let's make a player rectangle variable. I know how to type. I don't know why I keep looking on the keyboard. We want to make this. Okay, then we want to say PyGame. Now we are still going for the rect. Okay, PyGame rectangle. And then we expand it. You know how we do it. Now we want this to take in our car X, our car Y, like this, car X, car Y. And if you are someone who pays attention, you can just notice that this is just what we are doing. Okay, to form that rectangle, we also form one for the enemy, and then we'll use it to do the collisions. Okay, we say car, I believe width. Okay, and we finally go for our car height, like this. Good. So that should be that for our player, right? Now guess what we are going to make next? We are going to make an enemy rect. Okay, like this. Then we want to open it up. We say pygame.rect. Okay, good. Now notice how for this one we are not using pygame.draw.rect. We are just using .rect because we just want to establish the rectangles and use them for collision detection. So enemy X, enemy Y. Okay, and then for the last two values, I believe this was hard coded. Let's go back to where we drew the enemy car. Okay, let's go back to where we drew the enemy car. You can see that for the last two, we just made 60 and 100. How else we put this there? I mean, they are both identical, but at the end of the day, yeah, we hard coded this. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to have different variables for the same thing. It also doesn't make sense to put the player car's variables inside of the enemy. That's just pollution. Okay, so let's just keep it hard coded. 60 and 100. So you say 60, comma, and you say 100. Good. Now that we have this, okay, PyGame has made provisions for us to be able to do this collision detection. Yes, that's why I keep saying game engine, because you still have to do a lot of the work, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. So now we say if player rect, okay, then I think we have a collide detect, something like that. Okay, actually it's not just a. There are lots of things you can do with collide. Oh, okay, I think I have to read the docs again. I think this is what I want. Okay, then what are we comparing it to, or what are we detecting it with? We want the enemy rect. Okay, so enemy. Good. I want this on the enemy rect. Now, if this happens, there are a number of things we can do, but for now, I just want to set my running to be equal to false. Okay. Mind you, we have conditions for what should be done when our running becomes false. It's just going to destroy the window. It's going to destroy all windows. Okay, so that's how it is. We can just test this out. Let's test this out. Okay, and you can see over here I'm going to dodge a bit. Now I'm going to keep it in the center. And you can look at what happened when boom. So as you can see, it just closes the window. You can do other things with it, and I think that will be my assignment to you watching this. Try to play around with it. Okay, you can do creative things with that. So that's our collision detection. Our game is almost done, but we need to add score detection. So that's what we are going to do next. So if you're finding this video in any way helpful, I suggest that you give us a like and then you hit the subscribe button. It's going to help me and the team to keep on making massive courses like this for absolutely free. Also leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section on how we can improve these courses. And yeah, let's get back to the video. Finally, let's add some score tracking. Okay, then we can leave it as a good place, as a place that we are proud of. Yes, and then you can experiment on your own or whatever you'd like to do. So let's say score variable, score var for tracking, like this. Okay, I want to set this to 0. Now you just know automatically that your score is going to be accompanied by a font. It's going to be rendered by a font. So let's just create also a font variable. And for this, you are going to say PyGame dot font dot system font. Good. Dot sys font. Now I didn't think of any fonts in mind, so I'm just going to leave this none. And for size, let's give it 40. Let's give it 40. Let's give it 40. I think that's a good size. Good. Now with this, we still haven't done anything. Okay, this is not what we really need in order to display it, but let's handle some more logic before we think about when we want to display it. So let's come over here now inside our loop. Okay, now right after this key is pressed over here, okay, right after this, I want to be incrementing the score. And it's very simple to do this in a racing game because I don't know if you have played some of these before. Back when we had those keypad phones, the score just keeps going slowly. In fact, in light of that, one is going to go too fast. Let's make it 0.5. Okay, even that may be too fast, but let's see, 2.5. Let's start from 0.5. We'll troubleshoot and we'll see if it's good for us. Okay, now finally, I'm still not done. We want to draw the score. So let's come to where we did our drawings. Draw. And let's try to draw our score. Okay. Now we want to create a variable. We see score text. And then we use our font that we created. We say font.render. Good. So you can see that it takes in text, it takes in the bool, and it takes in the color value. Okay. So let's just get working with that. So now I want to render the score itself, but we want to accompany it with some text. So let's use our f strings. You should be fine with f strings by now if you are taking the course. So you see score like this. Now we say comma. Which boolean do we want? So we want true. Then our color value, we want white. So we just populate all the R, then the G, then the B. Let's give us white. Okay, good. Now we are not done. We are not done. Why? Because if we look at this is PyGame.draw. At this time it's just score text. We are using fonts.render. So in place of that, we want to use our screen.blit. We want to blit it. Okay, so it says screen.blit. When I say blit, you just take it like I'm saying display it. So it says screen.blit. I want to take in our score text that we just created. Okay, and then we also want to give it a position. Now the position I've chosen, maybe you'd have to do some tinkering, but I just know. Maybe as you do is from your intuition may grow, you just know how to be placing this. But yeah, this is the position I want to put it. And now finally we can just test this out. Everything looks good. Let's test it out. And boom. Okay, so you can see I suspected this. You can see the scores are moving quite fast. The whole thing itself is not really challenging enough, but you can call it a day. Now let me address this again. I know that we are just seeing some couple of boxes. I'm saying racist game, but If we really want, we could put some sprites and let's say more animations and stuff. But this is part of the Python course, so I don't want to do that just yet. Okay, if we really want to see that, we should catch me in the PyGame course, because I'm going to be making a dedicated course, and I think early followers of the channel even followed for that particular content, like the PyGame course. So yeah, I think I can do this all day. It's not challenging enough. Again, that can be an assignment to you. Focus on how you can make this more challenging. Maybe slow down the score. Maybe adding some restart message. I mean, yeah, play with it. It's your own project. And if you were able to follow to this point, thank you a bunch. I hope you left a lot of likes and comments and shares, and also mostly that you got value from this and your Python skills were improved. Yeah, it's been a blast. I'll see you in the next one.